What's up, guys? Welcome back again to another episode of My Mission Experiences here. All right, so last time we left off with bowling. This is bowling with part of our district in Ushuaia. We invited the whole district, but we were the only people that decided to go right here. So, Hermana Carrasco, Sister Bushman, me, Elder Peterson, and Elder Dixon. Here's just a funny picture we all decided to take while we were there. That I love this picture. I really do. Love Elder Peterson and Elder Dixon. They're freaking hilarious. So, all right, let's see. Here's some more pictures of bowling, waiting for our turns here. There's my camera that I was always afraid this camera was going to get stolen, like constantly, um, because it was a nicer Canon camera. So, alrighty, let's see here. So, this is my 1 year post. This is when I hit a year in my mission. And I remember I had Elder Peterson and Elder Dixon take a couple pictures of me on my 1 year post. And I don't think I have any of those pictures here. Let's see. Nope, apparently not. Okay. So, I did read through a couple of these pictures before we started here. So, in this, I was pretty much talking about some of our investigators, and I was talking about hating writing letters home. I got to a point in my mission where writing home was just miserable. Number one, I can't write for the life of me. Number two, I'm dyslexic. Number three, it was just a pain in the butt to sit at a computer, just like speed write everything that you wanted to do. Later on in my mission, about trying to think, probably about a month after I wrote this, I was sent a package from home, and in that package there was an electronic typewriter. So you type on it, it would save all of my daily writings. I'd write on that more than I'd write in a journal, and then I'd send that home at the end of the week. That would be my weekly letter. So it was pretty cool. I tried to keep a journal at the same time, but it was kind of hard to do both. So this is just a picture of our district. It was a fun picture. This is a really fun district. This is a really fun time in my mission. Honestly, one of the most enjoyable times in the mission was just with all these missionaries. I know it looks like I have. Everybody always commented on this. It looks like I have my arm around the sisters right here. Actually, that's just the sisters. We're actually a couple steps back behind them, and this is Elder Peterson's hand here, and my hands here on Elder Dixon's shoulder, and I think it's around Elder Peterson's waist. So this is kind of funny. Somebody commented on this picture one time. They're like, "Elder, do you have your arm around the sisters?" I was like, "No." Kind of funny. Kind of funny to look at. Here we are at Corina Nelson's house. So I don't know if I've talked much about the Nelsons, uh, um, the Nelson Maures family. So I remember the first time I ever went into their house. I stepped foot in their house. I sat down. We ate dinner with them, and I knew immediately. I was like, "There's something special about this family," and I felt it very strongly. And I just I couldn't explain it. I was like, "We need to come back here often," and I didn't know why. And so we kept going back over and over and over to their house. When we didn't have food, they'd feed us. When we just needed someplace warm to go, we'd go to the Nelson's house. And they had two young boys, Martin and Gabriel, and then they had a daughter. Um, Also, that they were all just they. So Corina had been divorced, um, and so Bianca, Gabrielle, and Martin came from her first marriage, and then they just had. She was pregnant and had a baby while I was in the area. Who her that son? His name's Tyel, and he's I think almost 6 years old now, which is freaking bizarre. Um, but anyways, we walked into their house this first time, and I sat down, and I just felt very strongly like there's something here. And I remember when we finished lunch that day, I felt very impressed. Instead of sharing a spiritual thought, to teach the first lesson, the restoration. And so we taught the restoration, and I was like, I didn't know why I felt impressed. Anyways, we became really good friends with Omar and Corina, and we learned about them, learned about their lives, all that stuff. And Omar told us a story. He said, um, I met Corina and I knew immediately that she was my eternal partner. And Corina didn't feel the same way, but after 3 years of being friends and only friends, they Corina realized that he was right and that they needed to be more than just friends, but eternal companions. And so they got married, they had Tyel. And anyways, we would ask Corina to go. I knew she served a mini mission, and so a mini mission, they used to do it back in the day that they would send out mini missionaries to areas. They would send 18-year-old men or 19-year-old men and 21-year-old women out for a couple of months, to do a mini mission to kind of help with the missionary work in parts of the world that needed more missionaries. Anyways, I knew Corina served a mini mission, and she was very knowledgeable in the church because she'd been a lifelong member and this, that, and the other. But we had asked her to go teach members or investigators with us, and she'd go and always taught and always just was just amazing at following up with them and becoming friends with them. And just, she was a very helpful member in this ward. And I loved that about her. And one day, she made a joke. She's like, Elder, I'm not a member. And I was like, whatever, dude. I see you at church every week. Like, whatever. I know you served a mini mission. Da 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 da. Anyways, meanwhile, we'd been going back to their house and teaching the lessons. And I felt like we were teaching them to her sons that needed or they didn't necessarily need to hear them, but I felt like we were encouraging them to be missionaries one day. And I truly felt like that was the reason behind teaching the lessons. And so I felt very impressed to continue this. And so we kept teaching the lessons. And one day we go over to Corina's house and she goes, Elder, I need to show you something. And I was like, what? And Omar, her husband, pulls out his phone, opens his phone, and hands me a picture. And it's a picture of Omar and Corina in all white having a baptism. And I was like, oh, Hermana, I didn't know that Omar baptized you. How long ago was this? And she said, look at the date on the picture. And I looked and it said, I can't remember the exact date, but it had said the day prior to the day that we were at her house. And I was like, oh, did you guys download this from like WhatsApp or Facebook or something? Because it says yesterday. She goes, no, Elder, I was baptized yesterday. And I was just like taken aback, like, what? And she's all like, yeah, I had in the past, I had left, or she had been excommunicated and had her records removed from the church for some previous stuff, and I had no clue. I had no clue about that. And she said that she had lost hope of ever becoming baptized in the church again. And it was that. And I had no idea. Little did I know that all this time we were going to their house to teach her. And she told us that she really wanted us to invite us to the baptism because she felt like we had made a really big difference in her life and in her plan to come be baptized back in the church. But she said at the same time, they wanted it to be a very intimate gathering of her kids, her husband, and the bishop, and the bishop's counselors. And so that's what they stuck to. And so for me, that was a very emotional experience because if I hadn't followed the promptings of the Spirit to just teach a lesson and then to teach the next one and the next one, and next one, without the knowledge of why I was teaching them, Corina may have never been baptized again. And so this happened just after a year of me being in the mission field. And so the plan was that they were going to get sealed together a year later. After I'd already gone home, I was going to come back and be there for their sealing. And that was the ultimate goal. It didn't end up happening. They ended up getting sealed, and I couldn't make it back because plane tickets were almost $3,000 a piece. So I wasn't able to make it there. And then COVID hit shortly thereafter. But what a huge blessing, and to follow the promptings of the Spirit. That was one of the largest testimony builders to me. Was always, always, always follow those promptings. Always follow the Spirit, because you never know. You may think it's for yourself, but it's funny because the Lord uses you as a tool to bless the lives of others. And a lot of times the Lord uses you as a tool to bless your own life. And so I think that's really what happened. Is maybe that experience was more for me than it was for Corina, in just confirming that following those promptings of the Spirit is so necessary. Anyways, that was just one of my favorite stories. I love that story from my mission. It's very, very important to me. And the Maures family, I keep in contact with them to this day, generally on a bi-weekly basis, if not a monthly basis. I try to reach out to them and talk to them quite frequently, and we'll go back and forth for a couple days, and then the communication will fall off a little bit, and then I'll get back in contact with them within a month. So I still keep in contact with them. They're working on getting here to the United States to come live here, and I'm really excited for that day because I I miss them and I love them, and they are truly my family. Here's a really fun picture. So this is the hill. Our house, the apartment we had was on top of this hill, and we'd go down this hill to a member's house. And we were going to the Rodriguez family's house for lunch this day. I remember very vividly, and the sister missionaries were walking behind us, and they're all like, "Elders, do something funny. We're gonna take a picture." And so we all looked at each other like, "Let's just jump and do something silly." And so we all jumped, and this is the picture we got. This is one of my favorite pictures. I genuinely love this picture. This totally explains the relationship Elder Peterson, Elder Dixon, and I had. And a lot of times they say in trios, there's two that get along really well, and then there's one that doesn't like the other two. And I was in a handful of trios, and I never really experienced that genuinely, but I can tell you that Elder Peterson, Elder Dixon, and I were all best friends in this trio, and it was just so much fun. We had so many fun times in this trio. We have so many fun videos. We have so many just goofy experiences together, with Elder Dixon falling through the ice and Elder Peterson smashing his finger in a chair, and us sitting in the apartment for a week playing Monopoly because I hurt my knee, and me learning from Elder Peterson. Elder Peterson is one of the most amazing teachers. He was about 4 or 5 months younger than me in the mission, came out about 4 months after me, but amazing teacher, amazing spirit guided person. I can't even explain it. One of my favorite stories. Let's see the next picture here. All right, one of my favorite stories of Elder Peterson is, I think I've mentioned this topic a couple times. We would get references in this area, and because there we had Dos Banderas, which is just a mountain where people literally went and built houses and ran a illegal electricity up to their houses, and they didn't have gas, and a lot of the houses would burn down because the electrical wiring was just bad, and it's really sad. But because of that, that area didn't have street names, and houses didn't have house numbers, nothing. And one day we got the reference from Flavio's mom to go visit the Alfonzo family, who was the siblings of the other Alfonso family in the ward. But they weren't very close. So I think they had kind of had a family falling out. Anyways, one day it was cold, it was snowy, just like this picture here. And we decided that we were going to go find Brian Alfonso. We'd been told that they were just less active members of the church, and that Brian was dating a girl that wasn't a member. And so we decided to go looking. And again, we got the reference, "Oh, go find the 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 tree that's been burnt down, or the house that's been burnt down with the mangy dog." And it was just kind of like, go find this, and go find the Alfonsos. You'll figure it out. And so we spent this day. I remember walking, and we went up to Dos Banderas, and generally to get to Flavio's house, you take the left and you go all the way back. In this one, they told us to turn right and go back as far as you could until the road dead ended, and then go find this. It was like a little like clubhouse thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's where like a lot of the guys would like go and watch football games, I guess. It was really ghetto. It was literally a shack. Anyways, they told us to go find that, and then to turn and just follow the woods back. Well, that's a really good way of getting lost in the woods. And so we were trying to avoid that. And so we'd literally go knock on doors, and we'd do an approach, and then afterwards we'd be like, "Do you know Brian Alfonso?" And most of the time we'd get no's. Anyway, so we started doing that. We were out there for a long time. And I remember my feet were cold. It was wet. It was snowing. And I was just kind of tired of being out in the cold and up in the mountains. And just, it was a long day. We'd done this for about 3 hours. We'd been looking for Brian Alfonso. And so I was like, let's be done. and they're like, oh, just 30 more minutes. Elder Peterson said this, and I was upset at this point. I was like, oh my gosh, this is stupid. So we went another 30 minutes. And then I was like, all right, it's been 30 minutes. Let's be done. And Elder Peterson again was like, just a couple more minutes. We just got to have faith. A couple more minutes, we're going to find him. And I was so upset. I was like, oh my gosh, let's just go. Like, I'm done. And that's just me being pessimistic, me. And Elder Peterson's like, just a couple more minutes. We're going to find him. And so I was pretty upset at this point. So we went a couple more minutes and I was like, Elder Peterson, I'm done. I turn around. I'm like, I'm walking back to the apartment because it's cold. I'm cold. I want to go drink a warm mate. I want to go heat up. I'm not wearing enough layers. Like, I'm just done. And he's all like, okay, well, before we do that, can we say a prayer? And I almost blew up. I was like, this is so stupid. Sure, let's say a prayer. And Elder Peterson looks me dead in the eye and goes, Elder Passy, will you say it? And I was like, oh. And again, I love Elder Peterson to death. And this is one of the most spiritual experiences I've had in my mission. But I literally was like on the verge of blowing up because I was just frustrated. And I literally just like, I looked around me and there was the road that was way off. And I was just like ready to just turn and walk away. And I was like, fine, I'll say a prayer. So I literally like, they like folded their arms and bowed their head. And I just like, didn't do either. I didn't fold my arms, didn't close my eyes, didn't bow my head. I was like, Heavenly Father, let us find Brian and Alfonso in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And I kid you not, I was like, all right. And I turned to walk away, and I turn around and there's a guy standing directly behind me, scared the living crap out of me. He goes, hi, I'm Brian Alfonso. I'm the guy you just prayed for. And my mind was completely boggled. I was like, what the crap? I was just like, what? Like, what just happened? Because I swear I turned around and there was nobody on the road behind us. But I prayed for maybe 5 seconds and I turned back around and Brian Alfonso was standing behind us. And we were like, what the heck? And he's like, I'm just walking home from work. Um, do you guys want to come to my house and see where I live? And we're like, yes. And so we followed him and he walked up the road quite a bit. And then he just turned off into the trees and just started walking into the woods. And we are like, what the freak? So we just start following him. And all of a sudden, like through the trees were pretty thick there. Little houses just started popping up. And then there's the mangy dog that we're looking for. And there was the burnt down house that was right next door to their house. And they walked us in. And it was, they had a very, very humble living circumstances. Their house was made strictly out of plywood. Lots of little leaks in there. They had like plywood and dirt floors, and that was that. But that was one of the most just crazy experiences I ever had in my mission. Just turn around and Brian Alfonso was sitting there, and he was able to take us to his house, and we were able to start teaching his girlfriend. And it was really hard to get time with both of them, but we were able to teach his girlfriend, and his girlfriend ended up being baptized later on. After I had left the area, she was baptized, and it was just a crazy, crazy. I can't even call it a coincidence because it wasn't a coincidence. It was a crazy experience that we had to be able to go find Brian Alfonso when we were looking for him. And it was a very testimony building experience. And I love and appreciate Elder Peterson so much for having the faith and continuing on even when I didn't have it. And so that was one of the reasons I loved Elder Peterson so much, is he was a huge faith builder for me. Another funny little story from when I was in that area. This is when we were going to teach Flavio one day. We were walking back, and we walked back, and it was about dusk. We walked back into Dos Banderas, and Dos Banderas is like linked with this area called Cementerio de los Perros, or the graveyard of dogs. And people would literally go just drop their dogs off, or lots of dogs were just in that area. If the dog had any issues or anything, they just go take it there to die. And what happens is the dogs, they breed, and then they have puppies, and then the puppies are just in this area to die. And so a lot of the dogs, they were like undomesticated, and they kind of became like wolves, and they were really aggressive a lot of the times. So not always, but anyways, a lot of the dogs would be up in the woods area up there. And one day we went and taught Flavio, we're walking back, it's dark out, and we start walking all of a sudden. you just hear, and also we turn around. There's a pack of like wild dogs up in Dos Banderas that are following us, and they start like running at us to like get aggressive. And so they're like running at us and like jumping at us and snapping at us. And generally, what you do is you touch the ground and they go running because they think they're gonna get hit with a rock. Um, that's just what happens. And a lot of times you throw a rock at them if they kept coming at you. And we we did that. We touched the ground, and these dogs got more aggressive, and they started coming at us faster and more aggressively. And we were surrounded. There was probably good 10 dogs there, and I remember being pretty panicked, like we're gonna get hurt. And it's crazy because while I was in this area, there had been a report of a woman who went out for a morning run and died to the pack of dogs. She was mauled to death, and so which is pretty bizarre. I remember when one of the members told us that they're like, "Be careful because the dogs are mean." Anyways, so I was pretty worried about that because I knew that story and I knew that these dogs were coming after us. So I was pretty worried. And so in my heart, I'm like, Heavenly Father, please don't let us get hurt by these dogs. And I kid you not, out of nowhere, in snow in this backwoods area, we're walking down the like path road kind of thing. This little white car comes out of nowhere and kind of just like drifts this corner that we're on and just like hits the dogs, not enough to hurt them, but like to knock them out of the way. And they all like kind of like and like went running off and they took off. And I just like was startled by like this little car coming out of nowhere and knocking the dogs over, and they run off. And the guy in the car literally looks at us, gives us a thumbs up, and drives away. And that was it. Never saw the car again. And I was like, what the freak just happened? That was that was the weirdest thing ever. It was just kind of a crazy experience, but I felt very protected by the Lord in that experience, that we were really protected from those mangy, nasty dogs. And so big blessing with that. But anyways, just crazy experiences. And the Lord had blessed me so many times as such in my mission. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're a little over the 20-minute mark that I generally shoot for, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Later.